Hello everyone, this is Reza Durrani. In today's video, we will cover creating multiple filters to PowerApps galleries. We will look at various types of columns, choice columns, multi-select, choice columns, text, dates, and we will explore how we can create these multiple filters to our PowerApps galleries with respect to Dataverse and SharePoint as a data source. So let's get started with the video, but first, my introduction. In this scenario, I have a gallery that is connected to a data source. The data source in question right here is Microsoft Dataverse. The table in Dataverse is a table for tasks wherein I am tracking all my task information. So in PowerApp now, the items property of this gallery is tasks info. That means it's going to get me all the records from my data source. Now let's start applying the filters. The first filter I would like to apply is on the name field, which is of type text in my data source. So the first step is we will go and add a text input control. I will remove the default property, add a label called name so the user knows that they are filtering based on the name. I have renamed the text box to txt name filter. Now the use case here is I would like to search based on the name that the user has provided. So there's a function called search. So I'm going to leverage the search function, and the search function, as you can see, IntelliSense is guiding me through. It requires the data source, which is my table, and then it is asking me for the text that I want to search for. And in my scenario, the text is the text control that I created, dot text. And finally, it requires the name of the column. The name of my column here, the internal name is crc05 underscore name. Close my function, and just like that, I have added a very simple filter here wherein I can search based on the name control, which is of type text. So if I play the app right now and if I start searching, so let's say I start searching for the word learn. So it will return all the items from my table where the name contains the word learn. If I was to search for the word power, it's going to return everything in my name field that contains the word power. Another way that many folks try out is use the filter function, and they provide the table name, and then we try and use the in operator. Now in is not a delegable operation, so it is not delegable, but the search function is delegable with respect to Dataverse. So it's very important to understand the concept of delegation, and there is really good documentation on docs.microsoft.com which will explain what delegation is. Basically, delegation means that your Power App can work with large data sets. You're not limited to the 500 delegation limit in Power Apps, which can be extended to 2000. And there are data sources that support delegation. There are 3 today. One of them is Dataverse, formerly known as CDS, SharePoint, and SQL. It's very important when you're building the app, you take into account delegation. Otherwise, you will get false positive results in scenarios wherein your tables are large. And if I go to File, Settings, and Advanced Settings, the number one feature right here is that delegation limit, which by default is 500. It can be extended to 2000. You cannot expand beyond the number 2000. Okay, so I've changed my function back to using the search formula. Now next, I would like to apply a second filter, and this time I would like to apply a filter on the task status column. Now in my table, if you look at task status, it is a column of type choice. Now for this, I will add a combo box. Now I typically prefer a combo box over a dropdown, purely because combo boxes have additional features wherein I can actually search for items, and I can even turn on multi-selections if required. And I've gone ahead and renamed my control to CB task status filter. Now for this combo box control, for the items property, typically what we end up doing is this. We try and hard code our values in here. For example, my choice column for the task status has these values, and what we end up doing is we end up hard coding those values right here. Now the challenge with this is, one, you're hard coding. Second, because you're creating this array with type text, many a times there are errors when you're trying to actually apply the filters because the data types are not matching. In this scenario, I'm using Dataverse and I'm using choice. The type is an option set. So if I try and map this and try and filter, it will throw me an error. So the better way of doing this is actually directly reading the values from your data source. So I can use the choices function and pick my table and then pick my column. And the moment I do this, if I was to play the app right now, if you observe the combo box, I'm getting all my values, which are my choice values, directly from my choice column option set. So now if I go back to my gallery and if I would like to add my second filter in, the way I would do that is this. I will apply the filter function now on my data source, which is tasks info. Pick my column, which is task status, is equal to my combo box control dot selected dot value. And just like that, if I was to go ahead and play this app, now it's empty, so it's not giving me anything. But if I pick completed, it's going to show me everything in completed status. And if I pick deferred, it's going to show me everything in deferred status, and so on and so forth. Now, notice what happened right here. I picked deferred and I picked in progress. It only respected the last one that I picked. If I pick completed, it's only showing me completed, although I have multiple choices here. And the reason is because currently my combo box has the select multiple option to true. I can turn this to false, and now this will act like a drop-down control, wherein the user can only select one value at a time. So I have to pick only one value, and that makes a lot more sense in this scenario. Of course, we haven't handled one thing yet. If this does not have any values, it's technically not applying any filter. So I would like to show all the options. And the way we can handle that is this. So back to my gallery control, right here we have the query which says the status is equal to the selected value. Now what happens if my combo box is blank or my combo box is empty? And the way we can add that logic in here is by adding this formula. And here's the formula. I'm checking to see if the combo box.selectedItems.value is blank or is the selected items in the combo box empty. Why am I adding these two options here? Well, this is one of the challenges in a combo box actually. If you select a value and then unselect it, then the isBlank function covers it. Initially when it is empty, in that case the isEmpty function covers it. So you have to add these two formulas in there. Also, if you notice, I have applied the OR operator in between all of these functions now. So basically what's going to happen if the combo box is blank, this is going to return true. So my query is filter my data source true. That means get me everything, right? So if it's blank, it's going to get me everything. Or if it is empty, it is going to give me everything. And if it has a value, both of the first conditions are going to be false, and then the logic is going to fall on the third condition, which is my actual condition of filtering my task status column. So if I play the app right now, if you notice my combo box right now has an empty selection. So it's showing me all the records in my table. If I go ahead and start selecting values, it will go ahead and filter them based on the selection that I have made. And let's say I go and clear my selection right here. This will go back to its original state, which is the empty state. So it is going to give me all the items in my gallery. Now I can replicate the same behavior for another choice column that I have in my data source. In this case, it's a column which is priority. And the behavior in my case is going to be exactly the same. I have my combo box control. I have made it single select, and this time I'm going to pick choices dot priority. So now if I head back to my gallery and if I need to add a second filter to this, all I have to do is add another logical test. All I have to do is put a comma and then put my second filter criteria right here. And this is what my second filter criteria looks like. Exactly the same as the first. And here you can keep adding additional filter criterias, and the more criterias you add, the more logical tests you basically add to your filter function. They will act as AND operations. That means this will be an additional filter that would be applied. So now if I play my app, right now it's showing me everything. Now in my case, let's say I want to see all my tasks that are in progress. So it's showing me all my tasks that are in progress. And I would like to see my tasks that are high priority. And just by selecting that, it's applying both the filters now together. And plus, there is also a name filter being applied. So if I was to search for something by name, it would also apply that additional filter to this. Now let's try and add a little bit more complexity to the filtering scheme right here. So let's say in my case right now, task status is a single select column, but I want the user to make multiple status selections. So the user can say, show me everything that's in progress and show me everything that's completed. Now, in order for me to achieve that, of course, this is a combo box. So I can go to the combo box property, which is select multiple, and I can turn this to true. And now I can easily make multiple selections. But when I do this, it's not going to give me the correct results. And the reason is I have to make a change in my filtering condition. So if I head back to my gallery now, and if I look at my filter condition, wherein I'm checking if the task status is equal to the selected value in the combo box. Now, instead of using equal to, all I have to do is change this to the in operation. And selected means it's always expecting like the one selected value. I am going to change this to selected items. That means whatever items are selected is the actual task status in any one of them. And notice I'm not getting any delegation warning in this case. And the reason why I'm not getting a delegation warning here is because if I go to File, Settings and Advanced Settings, if you look at one of the advanced settings, it's called the Enhanced Delegation for the Common Data Service, which is Dataverse. It's a preview feature. It is turned on by default for new apps. For your older apps, what you have to do is you need to ensure that this is turned on. So this is Enhanced Delegation support for the in operator, and that is supported in Dataverse. So now back to my app. If I go ahead and start making selections for the task status property, so show me everything that's completed. It's going to show me everything that's completed. Show me everything that has been not started as well. So now it's showing me both the values. Values that are completed and values that are not started. Now there's another thing right here. If you look at this combo box, of course, as I start adding values, the combo box does not show me the actual values. It just says that 2 items were selected. But maybe I would like to give the user a visual indicator of what are the task statuses that they are selecting. So how can we go about doing that? So I can go ahead and add a gallery. I'm going to just add a very simple blank vertical gallery right here for now. Pretty simple. So for the items property of the gallery, I will leverage the same choices function to give me all the statuses of my task. And once I do that, in the gallery, I will go ahead and add a checkbox. So I'm going to allow the user to check multiple options right here. And the text of my checkbox is going to be this item dot value. And once I do this, this is going to go and grab all the information from my choices field. One thing I could do is I can go and wrap my choices. So in this case, I know that I only have 4 choices. I'm just going to wrap my choices right here. I'm going to try and squeeze this in further. So I don't have a scroll box right here. And maybe I can even squeeze this a little bit down here. So this now could be my filters that the user can make a selection in. Now, whenever the user selects an item in the checkbox, that means there's a property in the checkbox called onCheck. We will go ahead and add the selection to a collection. So I'm going to call this collection task status filter. And I'm going to add this item to the collection. That means whenever the user checks the checkbox, it's going to add it to the collection. On the other side, there is the uncheck function. So when the user unchecks it, we would like to go ahead and remove this item from the same collection. The user unchecks, the item gets removed from the collection. And now, in order for me to apply the filters based on this collection, and for the combo box, there is a property called default selected items. This is a multi-select combo box here. So what I can do in this case is I can go and provide the collection that I just created here dot value to it. Now, if I play this app and let's say I pick deferred, notice how deferred is getting selected. If I pick in progress is getting selected. If I remove these, it's going to remove it and show me all the values. Now, the user does not have to see this. So I can go and change the visible property of this combo box to false. And I just moved my filters around here. And this now gives the user a completely different experience wherein they can see all the choices, they can make multiple selections, and the filters are happening live here against my data source, and everything in a delegable manner with Dataverse as a data source. Now I'll add one more filter right here. I have a due date column as part of my data source, and this one is of type date. So I've gone ahead and added a couple of date picker columns, and I have renamed them to date from and date to. For the from date, I would like to make this 30 days before today as default. So I will use the date add function, provide today's date, and subtract 30 days. So this now will show me a date which is 30 days before today. And the to date, I will go and make this 90 days from today. So now if I play this app, I see the due date range right here for the user. So the user can go and make the selections. I will go and add another logical test right here. And this time my formula is going to look like this. My due date column, so get me all my tasks where the due date column is greater than or equal to the from date. So that's my from date control dot selected date, and my due date column once again, this time is less than or equal to the to date column and the selected date. Now if I play this app, this is actually getting me all the data based on the date range that I have provided. So for example, if I would like to see all my tasks that are due in January, all I had to do is just change the from date to January, and now this is showing me all the tasks that are due for me from January onwards up until March 13th. So that's how easy it is to apply additional filters to my gallery, and this time I added filter of type date, and of course all the other filters are still going to work. If I pick in progress, it's going to give me in progress. If I pick medium priority, it'll show me that. If I want to look for state machine workflows, it's going to apply that filter. One last thing I would like to add to all of this is the option for the user to reset the filters. So for that, I will go ahead and add a button, call this reset. And when the user selects this, all I would like to do is literally just go ahead and reset all my filters. And the way I can reset all my filters is this. Just call the reset function and then start calling your control. So in my case, I have my name filter. I will go ahead and reset that. Next, my priority combo box. Next, my from date and my to date. And then for my task status column, which is that hidden combo box, because the default value of the combo box is being driven by the collection, we just have to go ahead and clear the collection. Now, if I was to go ahead and play this app, if I click on reset, everything goes back and gets reset. But if you notice, my task status selections are still in place. And the reason is because if I go back to my checkbox, the checkbox has a default property, and that default property right now is set to false. So we would like to change this based on whether or not the collection actually has the value of that checkbox. The collection is cleared. We just have to check if this item is in the collection. Now if I play the app, you notice it's cleared. If I start picking my values, removing my values, it will apply the filter. If I click on reset, it's going to clear everything and give me all my results. Of course, I would like to also show you what happens in the case of SharePoint. Yes, the behavior, the formulas are all quite similar, but certain formulas that are delegable in Dataverse may or may not be delegable. The important thing is to follow the documentation. If I head over to the documentation and, for example, select SharePoint, it clearly highlights what are the different functions that are delegable and what data types are delegable. I'm going to apply my filter for the name property once again. So if I go to the gallery here, which is my data coming from a SharePoint list in this case, so if I apply the search function because I want to search in my list in SharePoint, it's asking me for the text that I want to search, which is my column.text, and then it's asking me for the name of my column. Again, IntelliSense is guiding me through. I have a column called title. I'm just going to select this and I'm done. Now, I want you to observe something. If I go and play this app, yes, it's showing me the data, and yes, I can search. If I search for flows, it will show me everything wherein the title contains flows. But there's a warning here, and the warning is nothing but the delegation warning that is coming up right here. So if I go back to my formula, it clearly says that the search function is not delegable with SharePoint. So basically you cannot perform the contains operation with respect to SharePoint for large data sets. There is another formula called starts with, and as you can see that this formula works with a text column, and the delegation function operation documentation states yes. That means if I head back to my gallery here and change the filter, so instead of using search, I will use the filter function, starts with function, going to give my column name, which is title, and then now notice there is no delegation warning, and if I play this app and if I start searching, it is going to use the starts with operation. So the title that begins with or starts with the text that the user is entering. So if I say SharePoint, it's going to give me everything that begins with SharePoint. So if I was to search, for example, for power, it's going to only get me those titles that begin with power. Although I have a lot of other tasks where the word power is in them, but it's not a contains operation. This is a starts with operation. So this is one of the limitations of working with SharePoint, specifically with respect to delegation in PowerApps. I have done an exclusive delegation series. I have shown a lot of tricks and tips which will help you to get around most of the cases in SharePoint. So do go ahead and check that out. I'm going to place the link to my series in the description of this video. Now let's try and add a second filter right here, this time for priority. And for the combo box, I'm going to apply the same logic here. My priority column in SharePoint right here, if you look at the settings for this column is of type choice. I'm going to use the choices function and this time pick my SharePoint list dot the priority column. And just like that, if I was to go ahead and play the app, notice it's going to give me all the values. And that's exactly what I need. It's getting it from my data source. Back to my formula right here. Now I've already applied one logical test, which is my condition. I want to apply a second logical test condition. And in this case, my condition is where the priority is equal to my combo box dot selected dot value. And notice I'm getting an error here. That is because the priority column is a choice column. So you have to pick the value of that column. So priority dot value is equal to combo box dot selected dot value. And if I was to go ahead and play this app now, as I pick my priority, it will start showing me the data. Of course, if there's no value, it's showing me empty. So what do we have to do in this case? Exactly the same as before. Apply the logic to check to see if my combo box is empty or not. And for that, we use the isBlank and the isEmpty technique. So if I go ahead and play this right now, it's showing me everything. As I start picking my priority, it will go and make the selection. Now, if I try the same case as before, wherein I want to make this multi-select. So if I go to select multiple, and if I try and make this true, and if I go back to my items function, in case of CDS, we did something wherein we changed the equal to the in function and it worked. Let's try that with SharePoint. Notice what happens straight away. SharePoint, the in function is just not delegable. That means I cannot perform a contains kind of an operation right here wherein the user can make multiple selections and get the values. That means I would have to stick to a single selection. Is there any way around this? Well, yes, I've kind of shown a hack in my delegation series, so do check that out. And next I've gone ahead and added the date controls here. And to apply the date filter query right here, it's going to be very similar to what I did for Dataverse. And yes, date columns are delegable with respect to SharePoint as a data source. And as I start making my selections, so show me everything that is due from January onwards, it's going to go and apply the filter. And once again, I have applied the same filter reset logic. If I reset, everything goes back and resets to its original state. So this is how you can go and apply multiple filters to your galleries. You can also provide the users with additional filter types, like the one that we applied for the Dataverse gallery, wherein we added this gallery for the task status selection. I hope you found this video helpful. If yes, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And make sure you hit the bell icon so that the next time I upload a video, you get notified about it. Thank you so much for watching.